So there are these two monks, and it's been raining in the mountains in Japan. Raining and raining and raining. Maybe not unlike the weather that we've been having recently. And they want to cross this stream, but the stream is high. The ford is rather dangerous, but they're going to give it a go. And when they get to the ford, there's a young woman standing there. And it's clearly just way too deep, way too strong for her to comfortably risk getting across. And so one of the monks offers to take her across on his back. She duly does. They get to the other side. It's not easy, but they make it. They say goodbye. And the two monks proceed off along the trail. And I don't know, maybe an hour later, the second monk turns to his companion and says, "How could you? How could you break your vow? How could you have physical contact with that woman? That's outrageous. That's not what we do. How could you carry her across the ford on your back?" And the first monk turns to the second monk and says, "I put her down on the other side of the ford. You are still carrying her." Holding on and letting go. And of course, the way we tell this story normally is in the context of the precepts. And obviously, the monk who compassionately carries the woman across has it. His companion, bound by the rules, never going to get anywhere, is he? Or not at this point. Kind of boom. We see the beyond. We see beyond the words. And yet, of course, in reality, we're usually the other monk. We're usually hanging on, not necessarily for our own good. We miss a lot. We don't act as helpfully, as caringly as we might in the world. We're hanging on. And those of us who've done therapy, that's a question that might come up, why are you hanging on to this? It's clearly not doing you any good, is it? But why are you hanging on to this? And so then we can take the image of a bird perched on a branch. Effortless takeoff, letting go. If the bird doesn't let go, it doesn't get anywhere. Why can't we be like that? Why on earth? Well, it must be because, and of course that's where the guilt, the blame, and the shame, and the denial come in. I can't just put it down. I never should. As soon as we're in should world, we know we're in trouble. Let's be honest about this. There's a lot to hang on to. There's a lot of suffering in this world, whether it's ours or those we care about. Can we put it down? Should we even put it down? Should we even try? So many kinds of loss. So many kinds of lack, suffering, all the kind of things which the Buddha talks about in that first sermon. The nature of dukkha, the nature of suffering. What matters to us matters. And yet, of course, as soon as we're aware of this, we have this sense, well, I should. And what we do then is we deny or we dissociate. We split the part of us that is actually holding on off from this part, says, no, I'm not like that. And of course, that's when somebody says to us, well, you're so angry. And we go, no, I'm not angry. And of course, one of the things as we practice more, we learn to see these moments. We learn to actually have them as insight. Yeah, okay, hands up. That was me. and look what I'm doing. Denial and dissociation are both dangerous to us. They're dangerous to other people. I actually wrote off my car many years ago because I was not being angry and concerned about what the builders were doing to my house at the time, and deadlines and this and that, you know. I could have killed myself, I could have killed somebody else. I was dissociating from what the builders were doing. Unfortunately, I was also dissociating from paying attention to my driving. Skidded. Boom. Not good. What matters to us matters. But within ordinary mind, what matters to us is all just practice material. It's what we sit with when we sit in Zazen, and we offer our care to what matters to us in Zazen. Whether that's the cramp in my neck, my stiff shoulder, the thought that keeps coming back and back and back. We just offer it our awareness, our attention. We honour it with our care. Letting go is not a matter of intention. And this is the really important point, and it's also the problem and where we go wrong. We can't make ourselves let go, because that's not what letting go is. It's that not me, not other, not self, not self. It's what? We know when we begin to sit Zazen that, in the words of Bessel van der Kolk's book title, The Body Keeps the Score, we can feel it, we experience. And if we're aware and attuned to this body, we can experience its feelings, we can experience its numbings out, we can experience our pushing away, we can experience our clinging, and we can experience that wanting to push things out of our experience. And of course, Van der Kolk's book is about trauma, extreme reactions of the body, where the body really is holding on to experience which the conscious mind may or may not have completely suppressed, dissociated from altogether, or which may just, whenever I find myself in this situation, hey, look, I get the same response, the same thing happens. But we don't have to be talking about full-blown trauma here. Any kind of lack, loss, mourning, threat provokes in us what kind of reactions? Well, so often we go in the direction of hardening, this defensive, I'm only safe if I harden myself, if I see myself as separate. And we were chanting Heart Sutra, and the Heart Sutra is all about not separate. And of course, so often our response is about separate, about hardening, because that's where we believe life has taught us that safety lies in control, and control lies in separation. And so much of the way that we speak about the world and think about the world and are told about the world works in this direction. And of course, if we're thinking about things which are actually traumatic, let's just take the example of sexual violence, whether that's, child sexual abuse or rape. It has a social causation which comes out of the way we experience and operate gender within a patriarchal society. Competition, rules, punishment, coercion, But what's interesting is when we want to approach those things, when we want to cure those things, for heaven's sake, this is harming, this is real, genuine harming. How do we stop this? How do we prevent this? Well, our go-to answers are rules, coercion, punishment. More of the same, more of what's actually been creating the issue in the first place. Can we not think more intelligently, more sensitively? Where are we going back to symbolically with this? Well, let's say, use the P word, patriarchy. We go back to the father, who represents for us the law, rules, punishment. You must. And if at the level of our society, the ultimate example of that presumably is Adolf Hitler. In our own day we have Donald Trump, Viktor Orban, Benjamin Netanyahu. There's all, what's the response? We need strength. We need to be strong because there is an outside, separate danger to us. That if we're not vigilant, if we're not strong, if we're not certain, we will be overwhelmed by it. What's our response? Our response is force. Our response is separation. We need to build walls, whether that's on the Mexican border or within Israel, Palestine, whatever. More of the same. And within relationships, we're becoming more aware of coercive control these days. This is, again, exactly the same. It's this certainty. It can be certainty with a smiling face, certainty with a, I'm doing this for your own good, I'm doing this for your own benefit, but it's still walls, regulation and punishment, should there be transgression of the rules. And this is what we're given as our default response. And what has this to do with compassion? What has this to do with care? What has this to do with non-separation? And if it needs saying, of course we need to prevent harming. That's the whole point. We need to prevent harming. And of course we don't actually need an external patriarch, father in this sense. We do it to ourselves all the time because we have learnt the virtues of self-control. Shame has taught us the virtues of self-control. There's a lot of interest in Stoicism these days, and of course the whole monastic tradition within Buddhism is based on renunciation and limitation, and in that sense what might look like letting go. One sense it is, and within the monastic tradition hopefully you find the art of letting go. And it's not rules externally to follow, but becomes part of oneself. But equally, this itself can become, well, I suppose, like a drug. I've learnt to do without the drugs I took. I've given up smoking. I'm in control. I can control my needs. I've given up alcohol. I've given up coffee. Now I've given up tea. Now I've given up. And if I take it far enough, well, now I've given up relationship because I'm in control. And as long as there's nothing, I'm in control. And of course, my own teacher, Barry, always says this attitude, well, if you ain't got nothing, you ain't got nothing to lose. That's where safety is. No threat, no uncertainty, nothing unknown, nothing potentially dangerous. What's the real name of this danger? Impermanence, change, growth, decay, possibility, and of course, death. This is the game we're in. And even our wonderful Joko Beck can sound a bit like this father sometimes and can sound a bit like, well, should. Come on, what are you doing? Pull your socks up. But whenever we hear that exhortation, that we need to be strong, that we need to be certain, we're in dangerous territory. This relates to a very important distinction that, coming from the psychoanalytic tradition, Barry's very, very aware of. And that's the difference between what we can think about in terms of surrender and submission. And what I've been talking about are obviously kind of forms of submission that we invest the other, or we admit the authority of the other over us, or we crave the authority of the other over because they offer us certainty. And maybe we bitterly resent it as well. So what would submission be instead? Strangely, what might surrender be instead of submission? Well, that might be a letting go. That might be recognising the limits of my control. It might be trusting. It might be trusting life. One of the key differences is we always submit to a person, an idea, a certainty, a something. Whereas when we surrender, when we let go, this need for control, we're surrendering, placing our trust in life, in our own possibility that this is an opening, this is a beginning, this is not a containment, a closing down. This is life, this is change, this is impermanence in this sense. A leap into the void, but a leap into the void that isn't absence, isn't empty, is the boundless world of possibility, of relationship and non-separation. It's not always easy to tell the difference. And obviously, spiritual teachers tread a particularly fine line here and may well cross that line. There's a nice story about, what do you do if your guru takes you to the edge of the cliff and says, jump? Do you jump? Well, if he's your guru, if he's your everything, your teacher, of course you jump. I often feel that more, this is what we think of as perhaps more Tibetan attitude, but perhaps the Zen attitude would be, if your teacher takes you to the edge of the cliff and tells you to jump, well, you give them a good shove and see what happens. Hopefully you just end up falling about laughing with each other. But sometimes we need a push. It's difficult, it's complicated. There's a couple of koans here which are perhaps relevant, perhaps to the point. There's the lovely one that Joko tells, which again has a cliff, and we're carrying on this kind of leaping into nothingness theme. Tigers chase you to the edge of the cliff. You stumble, begin to fall down the cliff, but you're hanging on to a branch or a root that's sticking out from the cliff. And you hang, but the root begins to give, it begins to break and tear. And it's clear what's going to happen. You're going down to the bottom of the cliff, but just within reach, you see the most perfect, wonderful strawberry that you've ever seen. What do you do? Yes, I can sort it out kind of brain kicks in at once, goes, well, perhaps if I... And Joko's answer is absolutely simple. This is life. Death is part of life. This is where we're going. This is what's happening. This is the deal. You might as well eat the strawberry. That's our experience. That's the experience of each moment. That's the experience of each time we sit down in Zazen. That's the experience of what we offer life and what life offers us in each moment. But this, of course, relates to another actual proper koan, which is either a similar deal happens or you're just hanging, you find yourself hanging from the branch of a tree by your teeth, and somebody comes, stands below you and says, "Tell me of the Dharma." What do you do? If you open your mouth, you fall. You die, in this sense. And yet, your alternative is to deny, to withhold, to hang on, not take part, not enter a relationship, not share the Dharma. In each moment, which of these do we do? Do we enter life? Do we trust? Wisely, hopefully. Do we give ourselves to this not knowing, to the impermanence of life, to the lack of certainty that is openness and possibility? Zazen invites us to this in each moment, our sitting in meditation. It invites us to experience just this, not in any strange, mystical sense, but just literally this, the uncertainty, the not knowing, the impermanence of moment after moment after moment, and experiencing what life offers us when we are prepared to surrender. Hey, maybe letting go isn't an all or nothing thing. Maybe it's not some dramatic revelation. Maybe it's not some hinge of life. Maybe it's just moment by moment. Release. Release of this moment. Release of this moment. Can we be kind? Can we be kind with our holding on? Can we be kind with our letting go? Can we see both as life? Can we experience the suffering that comes to us in Zazen, the agitation and the peace? Can we hold all of this? Can we let go of that need to control and hold and release?